Welcome to the YourTown television program. My name is Jeff Kline, and I'm your sponsor and host for this Naval Postgraduate School Foundation-sponsored segment of YourTown television program. We bring you interesting faculty, staff, and students and what we're doing on the campus. And today we welcome the NPS Director of Institutional Advancement, Laurel Minik. Welcome to the show, Laurel.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
We're going to get to talk a lot about institutional advancement, why a government institution needs that, and how we leverage it. But first, let's learn a little bit more about you. You joined NPS in 2007 as a Director of Education Analysis. But before you joined us, what attracted you to NPS? Are you from the local area?
So, actually, I'm not from this area.
Oh.
I grew up in a tiny town in southeastern Wisconsin called Sharon, where there's a population of 1,500 people.
That's a town I was born in, Kansas, called Kiowa.
Really?
1,500, that's right.
People. It's
That's
amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now there's 1,499 because you left.
That's right. That's right. It pretty much doesn't grow. You're right. So the town is a small farming and factory sort of related area, and so I was there until I went to University of Arizona.
Well, wait, Wisconsin and Arizona.
Right.
What made you make that decision?
Well, after spending so many years with 6 months of winter, you kind of need a change. So when you're young, you can do that. You
Right.
can make that change.
Right. Well, it snows in Arizona if you're in the right areas, that
Yes,
sort of thing.
but not in Tucson.
So what'd you study in Tucson?
Psychology.
Great.
Yes, I loved it there. It's a great place. In fact, that's where I met my husband.
At the
So
university as students, or?
He was a soldier at Fort Huachuca.
Oh, great.
Yes. So shortly after we met, he got out of the Army, and then we made our way back to the Midwest.
Oh, back to Wisconsin, or?
Briefly to Wisconsin and then to Ohio for about a decade.
Okay, well then how did you come to NPS?
So that's a really great question. And the answer you're going to think is made up, but I swear this is a true story.
Okay.
So growing up, my husband was an avid reader, and one of his favorite authors was John Steinbeck.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so he had this, fascination with Salinas Valley, the Monterey Bay, and it was always on his mind. Couple that with the Army. He had friends that went to DLI and just came back and talked about the area and the school and things like that. So in 2007, he applied for a position at NPS, and we decided to uproot from Ohio and move to Monterey area, sight unseen, at least for me.
Well, we were fortunate to capture both of you.
Yes.
What was your first impressions of Monterey then?
So we were only going to be here a year because the cost of living comparison
Is very high. That's exactly right.
So
Sure.
I was like, we'll give it a year.
There's
We'll
that
see.
sticker shock when you first get here. That's
There
great.
is, absolutely. So within a few days, maybe a week, I said, I cannot leave here. It's just amazing. It's amazing. And NPS is an amazing institution. So, everything kind of lined up, and we bought a house in Pacific Grove and haven't looked back.
Oh, great. So you love to live in Pacific Grove.
Yes.
Do you love are you anywhere near the ocean, or do you go down to the Silmar periodically? Or?
We do.
Yeah.
We probably a mile or so from the actual beach.
Well, that's nice. That way you avoid some of the traffic, but you go down when you need to. You can walk there without any problem at all.
Best of both worlds.
That's a beautiful area.
It is.
Well, now wait a minute. Your husband came and applied for a job at NPS,
Yes.
but you got one as well, right?
I did.
How did that work?
So within a few months, I submitted my application for the Director of Education Analysis, and I was offered the position.
So what does that entail? What does an education analysis person do?
So my primary responsibility in that position was to really create a portfolio of systematic reports that senior leadership could use to make decisions, data-driven decisions. So reports like the quarterly enrollment report or instruction reports, grade analyses, things like that. So make those available for decision-making.
That's both locally and externally in Washington, as far as
That's right.
how the school's used, how it's utilized, as well as maybe instructors' performance and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Right.
You're right on. And then we also were helpful in the reaccreditation process, so doing reporting and studies to put together our package. And as you know, we were reaccredited in 2010. But I think the best part of the position was working with the faculty and their, genuine thirst for information and data.
Sure.
Just doing all the hundreds of impromptu reports from, how many students graduated from MPS from this country to, complex correlation studies. So that was probably my favorite part.
Well, it also gives you a much broader view of MPS. First, let's go back to the accreditation process and reinforce the fact that the Naval Postgraduate School, like any graduate institution or academic institution of higher learning, goes through an accreditation process, whereas we have Western accreditation people come in, they inspect our degree programs, our qualifications, many of the statistics that you provided them to ensure that we still offer advanced and truly quality graduate education. That's separate from the military program reviews, where we have senior officers and flag officers come in and take a look at our specific programs and say, yes, we still need that in the Department of Defense. And I think you're involved in both of those when you were doing this important work. But the other thing I think that you got that probably you don't have an appreciation for is most of our faculty come in and they go to their department and they learn their classes they're going to teach and they start a major research program and they focus on that, but they have no idea what goes on across the campus. Your couple years in that position gave you a viewpoint of everything that occurs at MPS, our education opportunities, where the students were, what type of students we had, and that sort of thing, which gave you a big picture, actually, really.
Absolutely. That's how I learned so much about the school. It was like a crash course. And it also helped me when I went on to other positions really understand the faculty-student part of MPS. There's more than meets the eye to just the operations of MPS. So
sure.
It was great perspective.
But I think you brought a talent skill to this that your psychology degree probably didn't provide you. So where did you get all that graphics information and correlation studies experience? Did you teach yourself, or?
Well, no. I mean, we did have statistics.
Oh, you did that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But putting those to metrics, the educational metrics level, was something different for you? I mean, did you actually relieve somebody, or did you actually have to create that job?
So some of it was already pre-existing, and they had the position had been gapped for some time, but some of it was working with people like Dr. Moses, the vice provost, and his analytical mind and his drive for information. He really taught me a lot in standing up the systematic reports that were necessary. So I was lucky to work with him.
But you didn't go from that job directly into institutional advancement. Instead, you also became the Director of Resource Management.
Yes.
So tell us what that is.
So Director of Resource Management for Information Technology at MPS. A little bit about that department. So the IT department manages the NPS network. So everything from the student information system to cybersecurity, everything in between. And they have a whole host of IT professionals that make it very complex. And adding to the complexity is we are not on a government network. We're on an education network.
Right.
Yeah, and that's critical to our faculty and students so they can do their research. So I think that position, it was incredibly rewarding, but very challenging as well. So I managed the budget, the HR, contracts, and the physical space for IT. And I think the biggest challenge, though, was probably budget.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other appreciation you've alluded to was, although we're on an education EDU system like major universities, Southern California, et cetera, we also, though, have to have the mimic of some of the complexities associated with the DoD systems, so that to do our research, we actually have to mimic many of their complex systems under that academic umbrella. And I think you had that position for 6 years, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. Did you learn anything about IT that you didn't know before?
Oh, of course, yeah. And I had zero IT background, so there was a learning curve to that.
Well, tell me about this. It seems to me one of the biggest challenges there, particularly in information technology, was retaining a staff. That skill set is in such high demand, particularly up north.
That's right.
How did you meet that challenge in charge of human resources in that area?
So that's a great question, and honestly, they really haven't solved it yet.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I saw probably a third of our staff take positions elsewhere, either on the peninsula or up in Silicon Valley. It's very enticing to work for Google or Facebook or whatever. So,
And rewarding, but it's also even more expensive up there.
exactly.
So, right.
Right. But I guess it outweighed the benefit outweighed the risk. So they really need to work on that as the government in general.
I think that's true of every place trying to retain these quality
right.
people. But just this year, just February, you took over the Director of Institutional Advancement.
That's right.
So first tell us a little bit about that organization, what its mission is, and why MPS as a government entity needs something like that.
Sure. So institutional advancement is a department of one, me.
Okay.
So it's my job.
So it's not, you don't have to worry about managing staff too much.
No, not right now.
If they become unruly, you just have to look in the mirror.
Yes.
Okay.
So I do work with great people all across campus because we have pockets of institutional advancement, from our MPS warfare chairs to program managers and our faculty. There's a lot of institutional advancement going on.
So let's explain that for a minute. For our warfare chairs, you mean officers who are senior officers who represent another entity from the Navy. So we have an air warfare chair that represents Nav Air. In fact,
Yes.
Captain McCabe was on the show.
Right, that's it.
Captain Good, as the surface warfare chair, was on the show, and they outreach to their respective communities.
That's right.
Right.
So, and they really know what's going on within their community, and the communication goes both ways between them and the community. So there's that going on all over campus. So what I'm trying to do as one person is coordinate those efforts on campus. Now, of course, it's not going to be every effort, but to get the major ones, like the warfare chairs, like the program managers, and some of the major projects like Cruiser,
Right.
on campus to get the word out.
So by program managers, you mean or major research programs
Yes.
that have sponsors and that
That's
sort of thing.
correct.
Sure. And so one of those things, of course, you have an extensive experience before you took the job, and you do have the campus-wide view from what we were talking about. But by centralizing some of those or coordinating those efforts, how do you do that? How do you get the information out to the warfare chairs and that sort of thing? Which way do we want them to go?
That's a great question. Within a few weeks of me taking the position, I stood up an institutional advancement working group.
Oh, great.
Yes, and it's made up of the warfare chairs along with faculty, the public affairs office, the dean of students, the chief of staff, and we all gathered to talk about institutional advancement. They were instrumental in helping to build the IA strategic plan, as well as getting together to talk about the different initiatives that we should take on.
Well, you brought it up. So Steve Lerman, our provost, was on the show. He was talking about our strategic plan, and a large part of that is institutional advancement. So how do you align your efforts with that strategic plan?
So you're right. Institutional advancement was deliberately made a topic in the NPS strategic plan under theme 3, institutional innovation and effectiveness. And I think the focus is because years ago, institutional advancement department existed, but through hiring freezes and constraints that the government has, we weren't able to resource it until February.
Right.
So losing that focus, we lost a lot of ground in telling our story externally. So we lost our media and communications. We couldn't do as many publications. So reinvigorating the institutional advancement function on campus was critical, and getting the message out to all audiences.
Well, of course, the Naval Postgraduate School Foundation is very proud of MPS, which is one reason they host this particular program. But as a faculty member at times, one of the phrases I hear the most from especially senior leaders that are coming from the East Coast, in fact, as recently as last week, is after they've gone through and seen the campus, after they've talked to the students, after they've seen the quality of research work that the faculty do for the benefit of our nation, this phrase is frequently used. I have no idea that you all did this much, and that how different and you are. And so your efforts, I hope, will capture that and continue that message beyond our campus as well.
That's right. That's right. It's working with, the Public Affairs Office to get the information out. It's also, you brought something up that we definitely want to focus on, and that's our foundation and their alumni association that they just recently stood up.
MPS alumni, right.
MPS Alumni Association, that the foundation we will partner with working it together. So getting the message out to our alumni who, as you know, some of our alumni take top leadership positions all over the government,
all over the world.
Yeah,
That's
industry
right.
as
That's
well.
right. That's right.
So keeping in touch with them, letting them know what we're doing is critical to getting our message out there.
So maybe you've already addressed this in a way, but who do you believe the #1 audience is for the message of what we're doing at MPS and how well we're doing it?
So I would say that there are 3 different categories, but most prominently would be the government, or the Navy, DoD, and getting our message, the work that we do, the way we help to change and influence the Navy and DoD. You had Dr. Anita Shattuck on your show, and her sleep lab changed the sleep patterns of our sailors on the ships. How we're adding to the value of the Navy and helping the military. So I think getting our message to senior leadership in the government is probably our top focus.
Well, now we have different activities at MPS. How can the local population potentially participate in learning what we do at MPS?
Yes, that's a great question. So recently, through I think the strategic plan as well as the commanding officer on campus, they've realized that it's really important to have the local community on campus. So they've resurrected programs like Concert on the Lawn. We've had 2 Discover NPS days. So getting the public on campus is one way that we can, reintroduce them to what we do, as well as, I want to point them to the foundation and learn how they can make a difference to our students and faculty
through participation in the foundation.
Through the foundation.
So how do we advertise the on-campus activities to let the population know that it occurs?
Sure. So our Public Affairs Office does a great job at updating our website, and there's a calendar of events that you can look as forward as you want into the future to see what's going on.
And how to participate.
That's right.
Well, Laura, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank you very much for being a guest on the YourTown television program. Let's have you on again in about a year and talk about the different initiatives that we've done and potentially what our schedule is to bring the local population on campus to learn more about what we do and how we communicate to the outside world of just how great things we do. Thank you very much.
To do that. Thank you.
You bet. And thank you for joining us for the YourTown television program, sponsored by the NPS Foundation to bring you interesting faculty and staff and students in what they're doing at NPS. Join us again for our next show.